have the honor to present you the Samaka case. Samaka is one of the 6 tribal people in Suriname. And our ancestors escaped in slave rebellion and found refuge in the rainforest. We have fought for nearly 100 years for our freedom and autonomy. And in 1762, our ancestors signed a peace treaty with the Dutch government. After the peace treaty, the Dutch failed to incorporate our ownership rights in the national legislation. This left us legally defenseless until today. We are still struggling for protect our territory against threats. Government of Suriname kept the legal means to grant logging and mining concession in our land. Dutch government is preparing to repair Suriname for slavery. So, just give you an historical outline. And according to our perspective, the Dutch should repair the fact that they left us with no legal recognition in peace, in the peace treaty. One way is by putting precondition to the government of Suriname to receiving financial resources from the Slavery Fund and Development Corporation. If you look at the other side, I just show you some, this just give you a historical timeline of the struggle of the Samaka. And so if you go more, no, higher, lower, no, okay, yeah, this is just a case of the story, but to not to take too much time from you, the Samaka case, when in the 1964, there was hydro dam constructed in our community by Alcoa. That's a bauxite mining, and so they flooded 1/3 of Samaka territory. 28 Samaka communities was forced to relocate. 9,000 Samaka have to be moved. So in the 90s, that was the first human rights violation of the Samaka people. And in the 90s, the government granted new logging concession within Samaka community territories, where our farm was destroying our creek that was still our drinking water resources was polluted. They blocked the creek, they polluted with fuel, and then we started a legal case against the state of Suriname. We first filed complaints with the president of Suriname. After 3 complaints and the government never responded, we decided to move to the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights, because there were no legal means within Suriname for tribal people as the Samaka to file case in Suriname. And since there was no legal means, we could just go to the Inter-American system to seek for our right. And so in 2000, the Inter-American Commission find our case, let me check, admissible, and then they asked Suriname to visit the country for an on-site fishing, because if you, as community, file case within the Inter-American Commission, then the commission will grant a hearing. So we went with community leaders to Washington, D.C. for this public hearing. And then the commission decided that our case was admissible, and they wanted to come to Suriname to see, but Suriname refused because without permission of the government Suriname, the Inter-American Commission cannot visit Suriname for inspection, and that gave the reason for precautionary measure. So the Inter-American Commission ordered precautionary measure to Suriname to stop the logging activities, and then so that they have enough space to investigate the claim. Then they also asked for a friendly settlement. So we were discussing with the government to get our rights recognized, and the government refused so, and that we then make use of a so-called Article 50 procedure to request the Inter-American Commission to submit the case to the Inter-American Court. And the Inter-American Court, this is the only institute within the Inter-American system who can order binding, can take binding decision. So the court ordered in 2007 in our rule in our favor, where Suriname was required to grant the Samaka people collective ownership rights on their land, to demarcate the land, to delineate the land, and free prior informed consent was also required before major economic activities can take place within our territory. So, and this judgment was not only a victory for Samaka, but it's also a victory for all tribal people and indigenous people in Suriname and in the region, Latin America and South America. So, with this case, the Samaka set an international legal precedent for the region to require free, prior informed consent before any economic activities can take place in our territory. Till today, from 2007 till today, we still struggling for the fully compliance of the judgment, but we are not. We won't stop. We won't stop fighting. And if you see there, we stand with Samaka people. We are now with an international petition, which we will hand over the 28th of this month to the government of Suriname, and we have already collected more than 3,000 signatures. So please, you have still the chance to help us to do this online petition. So that is in general the Samaka case, and we have made some recommendation, but since the recommendation is in Spanish, and I'm not the Spanish speaker in the group, I will invite one of my colleagues to help.
Gracias, Hugo. Muy bien. Tienen polución en los ríos, ha habido cambio en el uso del suelo, por supuesto, ha afectado la fertilidad de...
The soil use, it has affected the fertility of their soil, and therefore it has affected the planting activity, and therefore the food that they had available because of the lack of hunting and the effects on the land. Hugo told us that they were an isolated community with their own customs. They preserved their culture in their customs, in the way they dress. They tell us that they're made up of 12 clans that have their own rituals and their own activities, But all this has been affected because of this project of logging or felling in his territory. And something that we know very well is the arrival of many foreigners into a territory with many different elements that affect their culture. And when we talk about strategies, both followed by the government and local authorities of the company, we don't find a scenario very different from what we see. The co-opting of leaders, bribes being offered, signing private agreements between them, paying money under the table. As we said, there's no legal recognition of them as a community. And we find that this is a very perverse strategy. And of course, granting concessions without prior consent, if they're not recognized as a community that is part of the territory with sovereignty on its territory, let alone consulting them or looking for their consent for the arrival of these type of projects. They only recognize the leaders that agree with the government and the company, those leaders that manipulate the communities and seek their approval for what they have been doing in their territory. There's a partnership between the state and the company, an alliance. This is nothing new, and something that we know very well also is using the army and the police force against them and in favor of the company. As a community, the mechanism of defense that they found is what he told us about, appealing to the Inter-American Court, because domestically they don't have any legal tools that they could resort to defend themselves. So they had to take this leap and go to the Inter-American system where they were able to get the precautionary measure that he mentioned. So he also mentioned a partnership with the Global Justice Association, which has been a support and has given them legal counsel because, as is the case of most of our communities don't have a lot of legal expertise, so they found support in that association. And he mentioned something that we think it's important. The 12 leaders from the 12 clans of his community signed for them to go to the Inter-American system to submit their case. In relation to the collection of evidence, Hugo told us something, and it is that for them it was relatively easy to collect the evidence because they were underestimated. They looked down on them, they thought they were just a tribe, and this was an advantage for them because they were able to get together and collect testimonials from witnesses and bring them before the court, and they were able to collect testimonials in writing that made part of their probatory evidence. As to security issues, this is nothing new for us. Hugo told us that he had to exile himself. He had to leave Suriname for 6 years because his life was threatened. So he was in Europe for a time, and he came back only 2 years ago to Suriname. So, okay, we have the threats, we have the exile. And with respect to the other leaders in the territory, he told us that they have been threatened as to the guarantee of their rights, like social benefits and this type of thing. Like if you don't sign, if you don't approve of this, you won't have any rights to service, basic health services or social services. And there's a social and economic repression that we are familiar with, this stigmatization that happens in our territories. Same thing there. As to the results of the actions, he mentioned them. They have been successful in that they got these precautionary measure that ordered the government of Suriname to recognize their rights on their land. But because all governments are experts at this, they haven't complied with this. So they went from the commission to the court to submit their case. So that case is before the court at this moment as we speak. Recommendations. Well, we collected these recommendations in a collective manner, and among them, mention was made, I don't know, by one of our colleagues, I don't see him here, but he said that we had to sue the multinationals, not only try to sue the states, but it cannot be just a lawsuit. And that's it. I think Santiago was telling us something this morning. He mentioned the case that there had been a lawsuit against very well-known companies around the world, but next to that, they started a world boycott including the media and other types of actions right next to the lawsuits. So the line of legal advocacy was never alone. And this morning we were hearing about the importance, and this is one of the most important things, to have a community endorsing you there at the basis of that advocacy. And let me move to number 7 here, because Hugo told us something that is really important, and he said that as a recommendation. Make sure that the community is together, is acting together. This is not always easy. It's difficult to get these elements of unity in the territories and in the communities themselves. It has to be united around all these issues. It's not like we say, oh, we're here together. No, you have to make big efforts in order to have a community that is well informed with all the information and how the processes are going and what's the status of the lawsuits, that they all know everything step by step, so there's no room for anybody to come and convince us in the opposite way. So it's not like if you're not connected in this chain or network of information, you may be susceptible of being convinced by others that come and tell you stories, and we're very familiar with that. People believe everything that they hear because they're not well informed. So it's very important to be well informed and, about the status of the evidence and resistance processes, etc. Another recommendation is to know about the legal context. And a colleague, a member of the group, said, we cannot be so naive in this line of advocacy. In these lawsuits, we have to know the role played by the attorneys and the lawyers, even in the building and the approval of laws that are written, in a tailored manner, putting the rug before the multinationals because they are the ones that approve the laws. And these lawyers of these companies are related to the jurisdiction, are related to the legislative sector. So when a lawsuit is filed, we have to be aware of this condition in order to act strategically and so that we are not naive, as we heard from the group member. They also told us that if we're thinking of a lawsuit, we have to know very well what the crime is, if it is a criminal lawsuit, or which are the facts, which is the accountability here, who, where. And a piece of data that he gave us was, well, he told us this to reinforce the idea of all the actions taken by the multinationals and the mining industry in those territories where they want to ensure their control. And he said 98% of homicides, or around 98% of the homicides committed happen in 35% of the land in mining and oil and gas and agro-industry municipalities. There's a relationship between those places where there are high mining rates and crime in all those that oppose them. And member of the group said that we have to strengthen affirmative action. Even if we don't trust the authorities and the judicial system, it is necessary to give visibility. It is necessary to report. We have to have traceability of all those threats and all those actions that violate our rights. And as a fifth recommendation, along the same line of empowering communities with information and tools and norms, well, information is power, people say. Number 6, to create partnerships. These things won't happen by themselves. We have to intertwine networks that complement our weaknesses and cover us in all the risks implied in the exercise of territorial defense. So to create these defense networks and these networks of support. I think that would be it. I don't know if there's any questions for you. Hugo, one question. You are a Samaka or you're a defender of the Samakas? Were you born there?
I'm a Samaka, born and raised in the forest. So when I was 11, I was forced to move to Paramaribo, the city, for further education. And then I was missed the forest, so I went back every holidays. And in the late 30s, I decide to, when we started this process, because I don't even want to attend university, because I don't want to miss, to have a gap between me and my community. But when we start this case, and when I follow all this legal training, and then I fell in love with law. And then I went to the university and graduated in 2010, 3 years after we win this legal case. So I'm like a human rights, environmental defender, real Samaka.
Hugo, can I ask you about some of the legal strategies that Sahamaka people are pursuing at the moment, if you think you can share them here?
Yes, of course. As part of our legal strategy, it's almost 70 years of the Sahamaka adjustment, and the state of Suriname still not fully comply. We decide to file a case within Suriname to ask our judges to convince that Suriname is failed to implement the international order, because it's a requirement. Suriname is part of the Inter-American system. They ratify the convention without any reservation, so they have to do that. So that's once, and if the court decides yes, then we ask the court to give Suriname like 3 to 6 months to fully comply with a fine of $10 million per day that they refuse to do so. And also all this environmental damage of our territory, they have to make sure that they clean up, and they have to put expert to investigate, and to every year, and then we need to have the result. That's one. The other legal case is against the Palmeiras company, who built a road last year in 6 months' time, like 42.7 kilometer road, building across our territory, where they do a lot of logging, but also illegal activities are taking place. So we file a case to ask the court to revoke the concession of this company, but also to stop all economic activities. And the third one is we have a so-called constitutional court. That's a court that have to check if national law is against international law. So we find out that according to the Sahamaka adjustment, that the forest law, the mine law, and even our constitution is against the international law. So we ask the constitutional court also to look at these 3 cases.
I'm just going to add something else, because we've been working very closely with Hugo, if he allows me. He's also in touch with the Global Justice Association, the organization that did the presentation this morning, and they are actually working very closely with SOMO, another organization that is specialized in investigating structures of companies and financial flows. So they are actually looking at the companies that are operating in the Suriname country, and they are investigating them to find out pressure points and to see the possibilities for legal action. For example, because the Suriname country is a former Dutch colony, if there were to be any financial flows that come from the Dutch context, then there might be an opportunity for litigation there, and the Global Justice Association would be available to do that. Just wanted to mention that so you understand some of the avenues that he's pursuing. Thank you.
Les hago esta reseña para que sepan el contexto y de la gravedad del asunto, de esta amenaza que
I'll show you
tenemos.
this picture so that you are aware of the context and the seriousness of this threat. We can produce we are located at the skirt of the Serranía de Perijá, which is a mountainous area, and we have all types of different climates. since we're here in the tropic. So the process began, as we already know, there's a manual that is replicated in every country, as we understand, because we know people from other countries, and they have told us that it's exactly the same. We have a manual. They have a manual that is used by these corporations to go over the communities, or to initially there's a company that comes to our territory. It's called MPX, which is a Brazilian company. And it came to our community. We realized when we had all these yellow machines to explore. So at that time, we did not have a community council. So they came in, and we realized, because after many days they were doing their work, we realized then when one of the operators, they're saying they were because there was a mining title to extract coal, a mega project very similar to Cerrejón or bigger than Cerrejón, to extract a lot of coal that was contained in the subsoil of our territory. So now this company managed to have a license. They were granted a license to extract the coal. So they began to encounter a few problems with the owner. The owner, Batiste, who's related with problems in the entire Latin America and the Sun route. At this time, this man is in jail because of all the corruption and all the illegal activities where he was involved. After the licensing, we decided to file a class action, and then we began to come together as we began to organize ourselves. We filed that class action against the communities that were going to be affected by this project, because the company did not recognize us as an Afro community settled in that territory. So we filed that class action. We were able to have prior consultation. After that, the fact that the company had already lost their license because of lack of execution, so they had sold this mining title to another company after going to CCB, which was a subsidiary of MPX here in Colombia, which is another mechanisms of that manual that they use. Always they use a facade here in Colombia. So when they have to leave, they just walk away and they don't meet any of their responsibilities because they leave behind the facade absolutely broke. So that's why they've never do a closing mining plan or any of that, because they have that facade in Colombia that supposedly would be responsible for the harm or damage. And since it's broke, when they leave, nobody meets any responsibility, environmental responsibility, or any damage or any liabilities, environmental liabilities, such as the case as what happened with Prodeco in El Cesar when they left. And the government has had to sue them and to conduct a series of activities because they didn't meet any of the things they said they would. So let us continue. So we brought together the community council. We asked the government. So we were able to do this through class action, and they realized that there was an Afro peasant communities in all these territories. So the class action was filed by three communities, and then other 5 communities or 6 communities joined that class action, which were the communities that were going to be affected directly. But we need to mention that this is a mega project because we can't be deceived. We need to repeat this. These companies, they say that it's a small project so they can to deal with the environmental It includes a railroad that goes through the entire department from north to south, and it ends in Dibuya, almost in the border of the Magdalena department. And that's where they had planned to do a port to take the coal out through that port. What are the impacts and the damage? Right now, nothing has been extracted, not even a kilo of coal. But this is something that we need to bear in mind. Not even a kilo of coal, but the affectations to the community are huge, especially in the social fabric. When they came, most of you who are here, when there are projects, there's some productive projects that they come with, which is they begin to give people money and to commit them and to engage them. I'm going to make a comment. This is a small town of has only 7 streets. And in those 7 streets, there are 20 restaurants, but facade restaurants. And many of them, the company had already framed them. It says restaurant such and such, restaurant such and such. And the promise to those restaurants is that when the mining exploitation will begin, those people will become really rich, millionaires. And in that way, they have 52 mining projects with other activities. None of those 52 projects, they don't work. If you go buy a water bottle to one of those restaurants and they have nothing, they don't do any, they don't sell, it's not a retail, they're just waiting for the project to start. There have been other types of impacts, such as stigmatization of some leaders. They've said that we're guerrilla members, and some of our community members have heard that we are opposed, that we oppose progress, that we give people, we tell people that this project is going to damage our community because it's less than 1K from the community where we are, and it's less than 1K where we have the largest river in Colombia that allows us to provide water for over 3,000. We are the greatest cotton exporters and food. What commercially is being sold in the market is produced in Cañaverales. And they have said that we oppose progress, that we oppose. Of course, we are afraid that the company will damage our water, our rivers, because a mega project that is less than 1 kilometer away, it would probably displace all the entire community. And the exploitation, it causes so much damage to waterways. They have also intervened many public spaces. We would like to complain, and we would like to know you. We would like you to know the abuse of public entities. They have an agreement with the SENA, with the Education Institute, and we have filed that complaint, complaining about the behavior of SENA, which is part of the productive projects, and the only thing they do is they write the acronym of the institution to really support what is being done. They have deceived also so many people that currently do not agree, and they're just planting fantasies as mining. They're telling them by mining their children will have scholarships to study whatever they want, that they will have great hospitals, great schools. But the truth is the company where the land, the exploitation of land, it's next to the only high school that we have. So this high school would be the first building that would be affected when exploitation begins. The country of origin of the company is Turkish. The name of the parent company is the Gilderi Group. It's quite. They have a fleet. They're not really experts on coal, but they were looking at to transport coal towards Turkey and Europe. They already have a mine in the north of Santander, which is a coke mine. So here in Colombia, they have their office in Medellin. It's called BBC's Squall Company. Another complaint that we have with respect to the procedure of the Colombian state, of the proceedings of the Colombian state. So it has been difficult for our community council to register before the ministry. It has been designed so councils can never be registered before the ministry, which is one of the weaknesses that we have as a community. We can't participate from any government summons. And this certification given by the mayor's office, it's so that companies, they can legalize their prior consultation. But from then onwards, that certification is not good just to be recognized, and so that the company, they can do their prior consultation and just continue with their project. During the pandemic, they tried to do the prior consultation virtually. I don't know if you know about this. There's any prior consultation that has been done virtually. Then that we were invited to a hotel to do the prior consultation with 5 or 6 people from the community. When our community council, we have more than 1,600 members and a community of 3,000 people, so we did not accept their invitation. So when they realized that we weren't going to accept their purpose or kneel down, they threatened us because they were going to apply that proportionality, which is a mechanism that violates the rights of the community. In addition to prior consultation, they make decisions between the company and some entities related to prior consultation, and so there were some entities that were not willing to participate, like the Colombian Institute of Anthropology, the environmental. They realized, they knew that we were being the proportionality. The prior consultation can't be, not even the proportionality test can't override the prior consultation. One of the problems that we also faced, they divided the 9 communities that were participating in this prior consultation process. They were divided. So they went community by community doing corporate capture. So they began to give some resources to the community, and then most of those communities repented because the resources that they were giving were not enough to hire professional people. Where our peers said they don't have the resources to do a good consultation, and there were some communities that ended up with problems on account of debts, and they had no time to pay their professionals. Some communities were sued on that account because they owed money to some professional people that they had hired. So all these communities they regret having accepted this activity. There was no guarantor in the pre-consultation phase because we participated in the pre-consultation. But when we came to the methodology route, we submitted with the autonomy that we have a methodological route, and they presented another one. They said that our route it wasn't what we were proposing, and they would go to the court. So to go back to apply the test of proportionality, and so they abandoned the pre-consultation phase. And that's where the legal aspect will have a lot to do, because we never denied to sit at the pre-consultation or to come to an agreement with them. They were the ones that decided not to continue the dialogue in terms of these two routes. So there were no guarantors. The ombudsman did not come, which is the person that should be there to help us. There was no one from the ombudsman office, no government entity in the mayor's office. No one was there. It was only the Ministry of the Interior through some specific people that were hired by the ministry. And we had a problem with one of those persons that said with the microphone that he was in favor of the company. And when we filed a lawsuit against him, but they said we couldn't do anything because they had a contract with it. He had a contract with the ministry, and they couldn't do anything against it. And we have evidence now that that man continues doing consultation with indigenous communities in La Guajira, Alta Guajira. So what did the company do? So we were doing what we were, the pre-consultation. We were gathered around, and they were requesting the Guajira Corporation to give it. So we are sitting trying to do the pre-consultation, and they were requesting the license without having completed the pre-consultation phase. It's so serious that even if there was a government, they could be withdrawn. The titles could be withdrawn from them because these are not sound corporate practices, or they reduced the project so that Corpor Guajira would accept the project. I know that those mega projects have to talk to the environmental agency, but they weren't able to reduce the amount of tons they were going to extract. Therefore, Corpo Guajira was not able to approve the project because the amount was so huge and the project was small, but the amount was exactly the same from the original project. So they have a commitment with the national government because of taxes and the royalties that they have to pay, and it's related to the amount of tons. So the government would not allow them to reduce the amount of tons, which was a lie, because the intention is to extract as much coal as they can. They've been trying to bribe they came to me to invite me to a hotel. Let's go and drink and let's talk and let us agree on something. They would call me over the phone. When they realized that I wasn't willing to participate, they stopped calling me, and then they began to, with other types of actions, to stigmatize me and trying to say that we opposed progress. And 3 days again, they issued a press release saying that the community council was guilty because the project has not been executed. And we were the ones responsible from, the benefits, and the monies do not come to the community. With respect, we are still lacking 2 groups, and we have half an hour. So we're trying to optimize time because we know that this is so important because the procedure, the practice. So So I probably will have more time. Do not try to wrap up maybe in 2 minutes. What I'm going to try to do is to summarize where we at right now. They apply the proportionality measures so that the email that Daza, the senator, had to issue a petition because we had no knowledge. So there isn't a closing minute. We don't have any, and without that closing minutes, they can't apply that test, proportionality test. This is part of, what. So we've done a lot of advocacy with the community council. The entire town is behind that. After they realized about the deceit from the company, they've never talked about displacement. They talk about something that is voluntary displacement, and I don't know what that means really. So right now we are waiting for a resolution promised by the national government that we will be applied a mechanism called APRA, Area Protected for the Production of Food, which is what we've been. We are not a mining town. We know how to work the land. That's what we know how to do. So we are waiting for that, to have a mechanism in place with which we can defend, because we know exactly what's the behavior of the Constitutional Court. And maybe the Constitutional Court will probably tell the government that they can't do that in our territory. But we will continue with this struggle that we've been in this fight for 16 years, and we walk away from here that from then they will take us. We will leave the territory, but dead. So that's a commitment to all of you, and thank you very much. Just a few questions. Do you have any questions? I just have a small comment, a short comment. The Wayu woman that had just died, Jacqueline came into contact with MPX, and that company was financed by the pension fund of the Teachers Fund of Canada, since we worked with those unions. So we went to Canada and we asked that union, tell the company to go away, or at least but unfortunately the union did not accept to withdraw the money. So we tell them, if you don't take away your money, we will issue a press release. And when they learned that we were going to issue that press release, there was an audit to this Batista on an oil company in Brazil, and that led to their going broke and selling to CCX. So at least the union withdrew from this project. Well, thank you for that information. That part of the information we had no idea. And thank you for what you did, and for having supported Jacqueline, who was our sister. Although she was indigenous, we've always had a very close relationship with our Wayu community. Another question? Let's read the recommendations. So part of the recommendations are, we as a community council, I'm the legal representative, and our policies, we can't receive a bottle of water from the company. A bag of water is 100 pesos. We have never received anything from them. And the prior consultation, we did half of it, because we came all the way we went through pre-consultation phase without receiving a penny from them. Over 15 minutes, we financed ourselves with our food, with our snacks, and everything that we needed. We did this in agreement with the entire community. Another recommendation, not to meet with the company in private places. We have a special place, the sports center, and that's our battleground. So everyone who goes to debate with the community, they have to go to that. Yes. Another recommendation is not to make serious decisions unilaterally. If you're proposing something to me, something that could be transcendental for our community, I can't accept. I need to go back to the board and to the assembly. Another of the recommendations is to have evidence of photograph sometimes they take pictures from us, pictures of us in other communities of people that have asked with our picture, how much does he charge to stay put? And that's information that we have received to strengthen or do the capacity building of the community. Thank God we have asked for help to some international organizations, UN. Victor Hugo Moreno visited our community, and we signed an agreement to continue that community capacity building. And we've always worked together to repel mining companies from our territory. And always we need to believe in the alliances. We have alliances with the University of Norte Santander, la UIF, and the attention center is not political and not legal. Why do we say this, or we may? I was telling Santiago, when they talk about the 4 pillars, the Cajado always talks about those 4 pillars. We have had some differences with them because we believe that it is necessary to have a lawyer, yes, just as it is necessary to strengthen the community or to have this capacity building. But there are some actions that without a lawyer in this type of resistance or struggle, we can't do something without a lawyer. So we are grateful to the lawyers of Universidad through Jose and people from Cajar who have provided support. Without them and other organizations that have accompanied us, we would not be alive, or maybe we wouldn't be here talking about a victory. Not a victory yet, but at least a dignified resistance. So we feel that we are dignified people, and we are proud of what we've done. You know, a lot of communities are offered, community councils are offered 300, 400 million. We rather preserve life and preserve the land to continue living in our territory. Thank you very much.
It's important. I think that these topics are so important that it's impossible to explain everything in 1 hour, but we have limited time. So let's try to do it on time. It doesn't mean that it's not necessary. We wish we could take 3 hours, but okay, what's the next group? Please focus more on the recommendations, because we have a dinner party and we have to be on time, and we have dinner planned and we have to be on time. We need a female colleague here out of parity reasons, gender parity. Okay. Okay, let's focus on the recommendations. But first of all, show the first page, please. Let's do 2 things: the geographic and social context and the recommendations, okay? This is the Cerro Matoso mine, Cerro Matoso SA. It's the nickel open pit mine that is the largest in Latin America and perhaps the 3rd largest nickel open pit mine in the world. It has evolved quite a lot. The South Americans, the Japanese, the English were there, and now I think that the Dutch are there. I don't know. It has changed hands a lot. Where is Cerro Matoso located? That's not Cerro Matoso, she's correcting. Oh, this is a coal mine, the Carbonos del Caribe. No, Cerro Matoso is the other way around. Cerro Matoso is a mountain. This is Carbones del Caribe. Okay, location. We can understand the struggle that has happened if we know about the location. Cerro Matoso is located in the south of the department of Córdoba, and this area is very, well, it has two parts. The municipality of San José de Ure, that, Hugo, what you call a tribe, here we call it a palenque. Ure was a palenque. I also come from Palenqueros and Cimarrones, tribal people. So the Afro population from the 17th century has been located there, Ure, Bocature, Guaira, all that area. And historically, Zenu indigenous groups were located in that territory. The fight to defend the territory, now we can move on to the recommendations, has come from the African descendants and the indigenous peoples. One of the traps has been that the mine has never recognized the ethnic part of the territory. They talk about communities, but they don't talk about African descendants or indigenous peoples. The Afro and the indigenous have legal, social, and anthropological characteristics which are different. So I recommend that to you when you talk about community council of black communities. Otherwise, the meeting will be very different. So recommendations. What has happened? A number of violations of human rights have occurred because of the pollution or contamination of the Ure River, Caño el Tigre, Cayo Saino. He's talking about brooks and rivers, and several areas that have become contaminated. Many native species have disappeared because of the contamination of the water, the wind that has been bringing CO2 and all the contaminating agents from the mine, from Mina de los Hornos, has led to many different diseases on the skin of the people and eye problems and a high number of abortions, cancer, also infertility in men, and sexual problems, etc. And this is based on scientific studies that have been carried out, and it's been published even by the court decision talking about all the diseases associated to the mining activity. But they have control over the health provider, and they change the results until the person dies, and then it can be shown that that was a problem. Recommendations. Vis-a-vis a number of reports and announcements from the indigenous and the African descendants have been made asking for recognition, and they have succeeded in the intervention of certain courts, and more recently some national and international organizations have gathered us together to defend the case, but never locally. The Ombudsman's Office for Ethnical Matters or Affairs, these local ones have never had us in their premises. As to cases, no, I said recommendations, so let's go to recommendations. To report directly or indirectly so that people are not targeted, because many people have lost their life and others have had to move somewhere else. Many of us have had to move somewhere else. Another recommendation: to strengthen the lifestyles of people as a way to rescue the uses and the costumes, because they have been bringing in many different people. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, and black, and they sent people from University of Los Andes here in Bogota to me how to be a black or an indigenous, to teach them how to be an indigenous person. So they introduce elements that are not our own. The state must act as a guarantor. We say this because in the agreements, the control entities don't play this role as guarantors. So they don't really pay attention to the compliance of the agreements. They never do, because, they just have the ways not to do it. Guarantees to apply the ethnic legislation, including consent, the defense of the territory, the defense of ethnicity, They use this concept of 13 communities, but this concept of communities is a gassy one. And what we're talking about here is of the defense of the African, Colombian, and indigenous rights defense, which is different from communities. They use the word comunales in Spanish as if they had the same characteristics as the ethnic groups. So we have to implement ethnic rights. We have to redefine the national interest, strategic national interest on the use of soil and its exploitation. There's a limbo there as to what ethnic territories are, which is a collective title. What is a collective territory? What is an ethnic territory? What is a farmer's territory? And this apparent confusion is used by the entities not to do what they should. To go over the security schemes or security details, regarding the threats to the leaders in the territory, or reviewing the security or the protection given to defendants or defenders of the environment. I have a constitutional court decision saying that I have a security-related problem in my territory. They give a month for it for a solution. It's been 6 months already, and nothing has happened. Then next was to continue mobilizing ourselves inside and outside our territory and carrying out these public meetings, these public agenda. Oh, my page is gone. Now, there's something in the last page. Since we lost our image here. We were talking about mobilization. You have it on your cell phone. Yes. Explain these court decision. But before that, just give me a minute. Now, let me close with this and then you follow me. Not only do we have Cerro Matoso in the area, it's an area that has nickel and iron and copper and lots of gold. It has coca leaves too. And there are other entities, other mining companies like Heselca, Sator, ISA, Minerales Córdoba, Córdoba Resources, and Frontier. There are about 6 big mining companies, very powerful, very big. Okay, now it's your turn. Yes. Basically, I just want to remind you of something. But the important thing is to say things that we can all understand. Okay, just see what happened. I went to the bathroom and they put the wrong picture of Cerro Matoso. I live there and my community is there. Decision C's 36 of that led the Constitutional Court of Colombia to make a decision in our favor, but you see flaws on the road, focusing how these processes are co-opted economically, because we know that the companies, the mining industry, appoints the president, the Congress, etc. The economic power, the corporate power has permeated to the whole country, and it's even reached the windows of the United Nations. I was talking to some colleagues, and we know how this works, because this is the government of governments, which to me is the scenario of all the mining companies, and they all know how this is handled. And we're all there. So we have to say that this decision, well, this court gave its decision, and in less than 2 weeks, 2 magistrates, 2 judges say, no, we're going to knock this down. After all that fight, and that part is before the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. We don't know if us or our generation will ever see this precedent, or when will the court make a decision. You know that the inter-American system may take 10, 20 years. We don't know. It's a mechanism that, well, someday the strategy will change, but that's how it works. And it's quite complicated because sometimes you may die waiting for the processes to occur, and we are giving that fight. And today, that piece of the mountain, we don't want it to be intervened, but I think that that consent is fading away increasingly. And if leaders stand up to say all this, you know, unfortunately, what will happen. So we see the presence of corporate power, how it is present in this scenario. And believe me, PBH, Billington, and Cerro Matoso appears as a world-class corporation, the best of the best in the country in general. And they show all these processes and the leaders and everything as if they were perfect. I see officials of the different institutions headed by the Ministry of the Interior going to the communities. And you know this, that we're coming to defend and guarantee those rights. And today they're officials at Cerro Matoso. Now they're the counterparty after they took all this information from us, and they're defending the corporate interests. So where is the balance tipping? And I was saying the same thing to guys here. When you look at the vehicles of Cerro Matoso, you see officials from the licensing authorities, and they're paid for plane tickets, etc. And, you know, the processes in our country, in Latin America and in the world, corporate power is really power at a global level, which seems to be endless. And believe me, all of us here are united by Mother Earth. This direct effect, climate change, this help that we're yearning for as people, but we're not being heard. I was a speaker in Geneva, and wherever I go, I say this. You don't know what to say. You know, in a corporate scenario, in a political scenario, and you know that I was speaking, and they were saying, okay, darling, if you were in the process, Cristina Bautista came just like you, and she went to El Cauca and she was killed. So I'll say, I'll never get tired of telling the truth. We, indigenous peoples, do not oppose development. And these were words that were written, and the world saw them. We, the indigenous peoples, what we want is for this development to go hand in hand with favoring Mother Earth based on our contributions, so that we can see that development in our territory, in our population, in our community. The synonym of mining in the territory should be a synonym of wealth, but today it is the synonym of poverty. Cordoba is the second poorest geographic department of Colombia, and it's the nickel capital city of the American continent. It is in Cordoba. So look at that. It's just unbelievable, but it's true. Our brothers and sisters from Guajira, same thing. Because of who? PhD Billington. So they just changed names. But I don't want to be too long. I know that you're hungry, but otherwise I could stay here for a good while.